Tonight, cyber attack shutdown. The largest fuel pipeline in the U.S. halting all operations.
It's an all-hands-on-deck effort right now.
This as the U.S. turns a corner in the fight against COVID-19.
Counts are down by more than 40%.
And
I saw wounded victims everywhere.
A deadly bombing on a school in Afghanistan kills nearly 100 people as the U.S. prepares to leave. Plus, riots on the streets of Jerusalem. Jerusalem Arabs, Palestinians, and Israeli police clash in violent attacks. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
A vital pipeline offline, now nearly 4 days out of service. Welcome to Faith Nation, everyone. I'm John Jessup.
And I'm Jenna Browder. A key commercial pipeline is shut down tonight after a cyber attack, raising concerns about criminal cyber actors, the resiliency of the U.S. energy supply, and, of course, gas prices.
The FBI is investigating the ransomware attack, while the company has promised to restore service by the end of the week. Senior National Affairs correspondent Heather Sells reports.
Government officials say that there is no fuel shortage, but gas prices have been on the rise in the last few weeks, and this pipeline shutdown could encourage a spike.
Right now, there is not a supply shortage. We are preparing for multiple possible contingencies because that's our job.
Government agencies worked round the clock this weekend to prepare for a possible shortfall. The Colonial Pipeline stretches more than 5,000 miles from Texas to New Jersey and delivers 45% of fuel for the East Coast. Officials stressed Monday that there is no damage to the pipeline and that Colonial is merely trying to play it safe.
Colonial chose to shut down its pipeline operations as a precautionary measure and to ensure that the ransomware could not migrate from business computer systems to those that control and operate the pipeline.
Our intelligence community is looking for any ties to any nation-state actors, and if we find that further information, we'll look into it further.
The FBI believes that DarkSide, a criminal organization, is behind the attack, and President Biden today cautiously pointed a finger at Russia for some involvement.
I'm going to be meeting with President Putin, and so far, there is no evidence based on from our intelligence people that Russia is involved, although there's evidence that the actors' ransomware is in Russia. They have some responsibility to deal with this.
Neuberger also says it's Colonial's decision on paying any ransom and that the government is not advising on that. The administration is making clear that it's very concerned about the growth in ransomware, its impact on state and local governments, and the country's reliance on private energy companies and their defenses.
Unfortunately, these sorts of attacks are becoming more frequent. They're here to stay, and we have to work in partnership with business to secure networks to defend ourselves against these attacks.
The pipeline shutdown adds urgency to infrastructure talks already underway in Congress. Last week, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said he's 100% focused on stopping the Biden administration. But on Sunday, a key colleague promised GOP support.
The implications for this for our national security cannot be overstated. And I promise you, this is something that Republicans and Democrats can work together on.
AAA predicts that gas prices could increase up to 7 cents on the East Coast this week. Right now, the national average is $2.96 per gallon, the highest since 2018. Heather Sells, CBN News.
Thank you, Heather. Joining us now is Amy Myers-Jaffe, a cybersecurity expert and director of research at Tufts University, and she's also the author of a new book, Energy's Digital Future. Amy, it's great to have you with us this evening. Thank you for coming on the show. First off, Amy, how significant is this attack?
Well, it's a very significant attack. We're talking about a major piece of energy infrastructure. I've been calling it the jugular of the U.S. gasoline system. So luckily, it did not move from the business side of Colonial's business to, a permanent or very long disruption of gasoline supply along that pipeline. But this is a major piece of infrastructure. This is the largest cyber attack that the United States has seen that affected, major infrastructure in this way.
Amy, I've got a two-part question for you. First, how much is this a wake-up call for securing infrastructure from cyber threats? And secondly, are we too dependent on private efforts to secure networks and systems?
Well, you know, I keep telling people this is like a Sputnik moment. I mean, you're in the lead up, we talked about the infrastructure bill. I mean, 200%, the focus should be cyber, cyber, cyber. We need to get this under control. Private industry would argue that, you know, they're fearing to connect too much to the government because the government has its own cyber leaks. So this has to be a national effort. And the partnership needs to be respectful of proprietary information because you want to keep the surface area as small as possible. But there needs to be collaboration so that we have early warning systems, so that companies that are private companies are not making an independent decision that they're not going to spend the money to secure their systems when it's a system that affects the public.
Well, Amy, let me ask you this. Does the Biden administration's plan to address cybersecurity go far enough in terms of preventing this type of attack on our nation's infrastructure?
Well, you know, the devil's in the details. I mean, we haven't really thrashed out the whole infrastructure bill. There was money put aside for this task, and there's been some reorganization of the interagency interaction on it. But I think it needs to be elevated even further to a higher extent, and especially in the energy area, because we're talking about adding a new digital layer, you know, between electric cars and integration of, you know, your home heating system or cooling system with these digital machines. You know, Alexa, you're going to be able to tell Alexa to do everything from turning your car on to changing your thermostat. And same for businesses. Businesses are going to be using 3D printing and other kinds of digital technologies in the manufacturing process to maintain equipment. So we really need to be on top of this before we start going down the pathway of electrifying so many different aspects of our daily life and using digital.
Amy, real quickly here, today the president cautiously pointed the finger at Russia. If the attacker does turn out to be a foreign entity, is this an act of war in 20 seconds or less if you can?
Well, you know, it didn't rise to the destruction of property, so that makes it very complicated. But having any kind of infiltration on a major piece of infrastructure like this is definitely a warning that we could get to a point where we have to worry about an act of war coming in this fashion.
All right, Amy Myers Jaffe, her new book is Energy's Digital Future. Amy, it is so good to get your expertise on this tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you.
Well, tonight, 20 people, including 9 children, have been killed in the wake of Israeli retaliatory airstrikes, according to Gaza officials. CBN News confirms 7 Hamas rockets fired in the initial barrage just outside the city of Jerusalem, with 1 intercepted.
In Gaza, Hamas is firing rockets and sending arson balloons into Israel. The latest rocket attacks come after a Hamas threat that Israel remove its security forces from the Temple Mount. This after a brutal clash on the Temple Mount today that injured more than 300 people. Jerusalem's Arabs, Palestinians, and Israeli riot police have been fighting for days now.
CBN's Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem on the consequences both inside Israel and the ramifications worldwide.
Monday's clashes are the continuation of riots for days between Jerusalem Arabs, Palestinians, and Israeli police. The unrest began over a land dispute in a Jerusalem neighborhood, escalating into more violence over the weekend during the Night of Power, the holiest night of the year for Muslims.
In recent days, we've been witnesses to violent riots in Jerusalem, influenced by inciting groups. We'll not allow any extremists to destabilize the calm in Jerusalem. We will enforce law and order decisively and responsively.
This is all happening during the holy month of Ramadan, often associated with calls for jihad and holy war. Palestinian Muslim groups, including Hamas and Fatah, have called for martyrdom and terror operations during this month. An international group of Muslim scholars supported by Turkey and Qatar issued a sermon on Friday calling for violence, jihad, and self-sacrifice, praised heroic jihad operations of the jihad fighters in Palestine, and the young Palestinians deployed on the battlefront in Jerusalem. On Israel's southern border, Hamas terrorists launching missiles into southern Israel, as well as sending incendiary balloons, sparking dozens of fires. The violence seems spontaneous, but according to Itamar Marcus of the Palestinian Media Watch, it's not.
It was the Palestinian elections, and tragically, Palestinians vote for whoever they see as leading the terror war against Israel.
The riots are also making an international impact. Demonstrations in Jordan called for the government to break its ties with Israel. Turkish President Erdogan calling Israel a terror state, and the U.S. called for both sides to exercise restraint. The riots and demonstrations are also affecting the attempt by Yair Lapid and Naftali Bennett to form a coalition government. They need the support of Ra'am, an Arab Islamist party. But the current violence between Jews and Arabs makes it difficult for Ra'am to join the coalition, or for Bennett and Lapid to invite Ra'am to be part of their coalition. Mansour Abbas, the head of Ra'am, warned on Saturday, Al-Aqsa is a red line. The aggression toward the holy site and its worshippers is unacceptable and offensive. On Monday afternoon, another potential flashpoint. Today is Jerusalem Day, when Israelis mark the reunification of the city during the 1967 Six-Day War. Authorities are allowing the march, but not allowing Jews on the Temple Mount and altering the route to prevent potential clashes. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thank you, Chris. Meanwhile, tonight some health officials are weighing the possibility of lifting mask mandates even indoors.
And all this comes as the country appears to be turning a corner on the coronavirus. CBN White House correspondent Eric Phillips joins us now with more. Eric.
John, Jenna, signs are pointing in the right direction. 58% of U.S. adults have received at least one shot of a vaccine, and numbers are down in terms of hospitalizations and cases. The president saying that we are on track medically and economically. That is despite a recent jobs report that was somewhat disappointing.
So let's be clear. Our economic plan is working. I never said, and no serious analyst ever suggested, that climbing out of the deep, deep hole our economy was in would be simple, easy, immediate, or perfectly steady.
The president said the White House is opening a portal for state and local governments to apply for funds under the American Rescue Plan, sending relief checks to 16,000 hard-hit restaurants, releasing guidance for states to get funding for childcare, and incentivizing employers to get their workers vaccinated using tax credits. Officials underscoring Monday how defeating the coronavirus and reviving the economy are inextricably bound.
The week of April 12th, which is the week that the data was compiled for the April jobs report was collected, at that point, only 18% of 18 to 64-year-olds were fully vaccinated. And as of May 9th, it's risen to 34%.
While the White House weeds through economic numbers, hopes are increasing that COVID restrictions will decrease.
The CDC will be almost in real time, George, updating their recommendations and their guidelines. But yes, we do need to start being more liberal as we get more people vaccinated.
Although more than 152 million Americans have received at least one shot, vaccine demand has fallen nearly 40% in the last month. That means getting to some herd immunity could be increasingly challenging, especially with some states turning down vaccine supplies because of lack of demand. Now, focus is shifting to children. The FDA working to approve the Pfizer vaccine for 12 to 15-year-olds. It comes too late for 15-year-old Dakota Morgan, who died just 2 days after being diagnosed with COVID.
She asked me why this happened to her and what did she do to deserve this. And I told her that she didn't do anything to deserve this. They told us to come in and say goodbye just until she made it to Lurie's hospital. I didn't think that it was goodbye forever.
Sad indeed. President Biden says since he has taken office, 1.5 million jobs have been created nationwide, the most, he says, of any president in their first 100 days. And the president says anyone who is receiving unemployment benefits and offered a really good job, a suitable job, they must take that job or lose their benefits. John and Jenna.
All right, good information to have. Thank you, Eric. Coming up, in the lead up to American troops leaving Afghanistan, Terrorists are ramping up attacks on civilians. This is a precursor of more to come.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
It's what starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. More tragedy overseas. At least 11 people died and dozens more were wounded when a bomb blew up a bus in southern Afghanistan today. This is on top of a deadly school attack over the weekend that killed at least 85 people, mostly female students. Grieving families in Kabul, the capital city, are burying their loved ones. Some parents still searching hospitals and makeshift morgues. Saturday's car bomb in front of the school sent scared students fleeing into the streets. That's when 2 more bombs exploded.
I was sitting in a shop when first of all this vehicle exploded. I rushed to the site because school students were coming out of school. Suddenly, a second explosion happened over there. I saw wounded victims everywhere.
At least one government official is blaming the Taliban, which is denying responsibility. The Taliban has stepped up attacks after the U.S. announced a complete withdrawal of military forces by September 11th.
Up next, the Republican leader in the House speaking out on the rift within his party.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Well, looking ahead this week, the GOP is expected to oust Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney from her leadership position in the House. The vote happening Wednesday highlights the divide within the Republican Party. Many see it as a direct consequence of Cheney's criticism to former President Trump. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy said in an interview Sunday he would vote for New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik over Cheney.
To defeat Nancy Pelosi and this socialist agenda, we need to be united, and that starts with leadership. That's why we will have a vote next week, and we want to be united in moving forward, and I think that's what will take place.
Do you support Elise Stefanik for that job?
Yes, I do.
Well, for more now, let's go to CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, how are you? This is the first time Leader McCarthy has said on the record that he's going to vote for Elise Stefanik. There was, of course, that hot mic moment where he voiced his exasperation with Cheney's leadership. David, does this Wednesday vote essentially mean that it's a done deal?
Oh, it's a done deal, 100%. As a matter of fact, can we tape Faith Nation right now for Wednesday? Let's do that because, let's mail it in. I mean, Elise Stefanik for sure will be the next third in charge in the Republican Party. And look, this is no secret. I mean, look, Liz Cheney has two problems in terms of what's happening in the base right now. Number one, she voted for impeachment. That's a no-no. Number two, she says there was no election integrity. There was all election integrity was just fine. That there was no voter fraud in 2020. That's not jiving with the most of the base or a lot of the base in the Republican Party. And that's it. We can get into Elise Stefanik and her conservative record. There's all of that to talk about. But that's why Liz Cheney is losing the job.
David, so McCarthy, he paints this as a way of uniting the party. Is it, though? And what about those conservatives in the party who maybe don't support Liz Cheney necessarily, but they also, don't support Donald Trump for another term?
Right. Well, it's unifying in one sense. It eliminates a huge distraction. Liz Cheney just wouldn't give it up. I mean, she kept talking about how this was not, or there was no problems in the 2020 election. And like I said, the base believes that there were plenty of problems in the 2020 election, and she just won't let it go. She's determined to beat Donald Trump at this, and she's going to lose. And she'll lose Wednesday during the vote. And that's what it is. So that's why it's unifying, number one. And as it relates to Elise Stefanik, look, her conservative record is not as good as Liz Cheney. I mean, Liz Cheney is what, an 80% plus conservative rating? Elise Stefanik is at 52%. But let's remember, this is a very important point, and I said this on Friday, but I want to reiterate this. Elise Stefanik comes from New York. She's a center-right Republican. It's also important to understand that her district went for Barack Obama twice. It was a blue district. Then it became a red district under Trump. And so if you notice what Donald Trump said in a statement today, he says, we need more people that can turn blue districts to red districts. That's why Elise Stefanik will be in the position she'll be in come Wednesday evening.
David, real quickly here, we've got 30 seconds. The meeting between Joe Biden and Joe Manchin, are they going to be able to see eye to eye?
Well, we'll see. I mean, look, here's the problem. There's so many different issues that they've got to talk about. So TBA on all of that.
All right. David Brody, we'll leave it right there. Thank you so much, David, and we'll be right back.
Thanks, guys.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Wednesday night at 8:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Finally tonight, beginning next year, the U.S. Mint will be rolling out a fresh set of quarters, honoring 20 trailblazing women in a new series.
Poet Maya Angelou and astronaut Sally Ride, the first American woman to fly into space, are set to make their debut as the first women to appear on the quarter. The images of the trailblazers will appear on the tail side of the quarter. George Washington will still remain on the front. The National Women's History Museum created an online portal to nominate other women. The coins drop in January and will continue in circulation through 2025 as part of the American Women Quarters program. And Jenna, I can't wait until I see your face.
Are you going to nominate me, John?
I certainly will, right after the show.
All right, just make sure it's a good picture.
Absolutely. We'll find the best.
All right, have a great night, everybody.
See you tomorrow.